Hi, I'm going to do a quick tutorial on drawing in Procreate and show you some of the tips that I use all the time in Procreate. So let's get started. I'm going to change the background color by tapping the Layers palette and make it a gray. Hit done. I'm going to draw an egg using the Studio pen. So it's not a very good egg, sort of sloppy, but the nice thing about Procreate is if you hold your pencil down, it will clean it up. All right, I'm going to set layer 1 to be a reference layer, and you'll see why in a second. I make a new layer, and I'm going to drag this layer below layer 1, and I'm going to choose a color for my egg. Let's go with a blue. I'm going to drag and drop that blue inside the egg, and as you can see, it fills wherever the edge of that egg is. That's why the layer 1 is set to reference. Let's create a new layer, and we're going to set this one to be a clipping mask. This way, when I draw a shadow in, it won't extend beyond the shape. So I'm going to choose black as my color here, and I'm going to switch my brush to something softer. I'll go with a soft brush, and I'm just going to brush in some shadow. I'm kind of envisioning that the light source is coming from the top right. Really loose. We're going to fix this up later. We're also going to adjust the opacity a bit so it's not quite so harsh. That's touching the N and then sliding opacity. Make a new layer. This will be the highlights. You got again making a clipping mask. I'll switch to white, and I'm just going to brush in some highlights on the top right side of the egg. All right. Now that I've got the general shading done, I'm going to group these layers and then flatten the group. So grouping is kind of fun. It's just swipe to the right on the layers you want to group, and then group. And once they're in a group, you collapse the group by hitting the arrow, tap the thumbnail, flatten, and I'm just going to use my smudge tool now. And the smudge tool, before I do this though, I want to make sure that my layer has an alpha lock. I don't want to go and smudge outside the egg. Back to the smudge tool, and I'm just going to use a pretty big brush to smudge this, and sort of following around the edges of wherever you see contrast to make it more of a painterly egg. And this is the fun part, I think. It lets you be a little bit more expressive. It also makes the egg feel a little more like a painting rather than a graphic. Now if you want to keep that black line, that's fine. You'll get something that seems a bit more like a cartoon. But in this case, I just want to show you how to make something that looks a little bit more realistic. Okay, so I won't go too much further in this part of it. I just want to add one more thing, which is a base shadow on the bottom of the egg. So we'll add a new layer and drag this to the bottom. And I'm going to use the freehand selection tool. And I'm going to draw just a general, selection. Sort of that mimics the egg a bit. I'll fill it with black, and I'm just going to move it a bit. Maybe rotate it a tiny bit. Okay. Now it left behind a little bit of a halo there, which that's fine. I can erase that out. All right, and now I'm going to blur it in the little magic wand thing here. Gaussian blur, slide to adjust, and then I also changed the opacity a bit because it's still too dark. I'll move it about. Whoa. And you can usually make a couple more, maybe even another one that's darker above it to give it even more dynamic depth, but I think that's good enough for now. All right, thanks for watching.